You can think about different leaders in the world, and there's some classic push energy, and Jack Welch, Steve Jobs, push energy. You just know if they're coming in a room, you're going to have to stand in it or stand out of the way. So a lot of leaders have a very strong push energy but don't recognize it. And so they might be feeling like they're getting resistance, but it's as much reaction to how they're showing up in the room as it is to what they're saying or what they're trying to accomplish. If I walk up to you, you can almost feel it right now. Yeah, and you want to step out of the way. Well, if I come to you offline, it's going to be a very different experience for you. Well, that's all energy. So it's fascinating to look at how the dynamics work between people in a group. And as a leader, when you're sitting at a table, how do you start to be aware of what's being created, being aware of how you're impacting it, and then being aware of how you want to shift it, how you want to use that in a way that builds toward what you're trying to do as opposed to affects what you're trying to do unintentionally. A great example of sort of drive energy, of someone who's really moving forward and it impacts how people are addressing them, is a client that I was working with on the trading floor. And he got really strong 360 feedback about that it was very hard to come up to him during the workday to discuss anything. He'd snap, he'd move forward, he was too quick, they couldn't really talk something through with him. And it was impacting his leadership. People were starting to not want to work with him. And so we tried to talk about how he could be more accessible and sort of from the head, from thought. And he kept countering why what he was doing was important. So with his energy, I'm going to go back to the sports analogy, if that's okay, is he was a lacrosse player. And as you can imagine, I immediately went, oh, I bet you he was attack. I bet you he was on the crease. So when I asked, he said it was defense. I, again, was pretty surprised. And I said, okay, so on the floor, you keep talking about the need to step forward. And he goes, yeah, absolutely. You got to keep moving. You got to keep going forward, or else, you're going to be done. They're going to shoot you. They're going to be, at the end of the day, you can imagine the type, that energy. I asked him what happens if you step forward on the lacrosse field, and he goes, oh, they blow right by me. I said, oh, okay, so what do you do? He goes, well, you stand square, you ground, you watch what's going on, you gather more information, and then you figure out what to do. So I said, okay, so what you're telling me is on the trading floor, you always have to step forward. And he went, oh. And I said, so on the lacrosse field, you want to pause, breathe, get more information before you move. And he goes, yeah. And I go, and what's your team asking you? And he goes, to pause. So I said, okay, so as we talk about this, how does that feel as an option? He goes, it makes so much more sense. So that's an energy shift where he was all in the forward push, gotta move, and his thoughts were following it. This is what I gotta do. I gotta make decisions. But when he relaxed into the quieter energy of gathering, of bringing something in, of understanding it, it totally shifted his decision-making, the way he communicated, everything. It just opened up so many more possibilities of how he could lead.